Hey, it's Chris. So, right, it's that time. It's been a couple weeks, and a couple weeks rolls around, and then I have to remind you why you should not back any games on crowdfunding, no matter how good they are, no matter what IP it is, and how much it's grabbing you by the wrist and your wallet. I thought I was going to say something else there, didn't you? Or whatever else FOMO is currently striking fear in your heart. Let's do this. Let's help you not spend some money. And as always, full disclaimer, like I put out there, if I'm wrong, if I'm an idiot, if I am just, a poor taste in games, you can always do it. But really, I'm just trying to make sure that you're getting what's exactly right for you. That is the mission of my channel above all else. And I just freaking love talking about board games. Let's go. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in a Half Shell. Turtle expensive IP is where we're going with this. And I like the flat rate shipping. The idea of a flat rate shipping, if we just scroll all the way down to the bottom, right, is fantastic in theory. Let's scroll back up to the top though, because that's where I'm going with this, right? The flat rate shipping is fantastic if you're getting not this pledge level, if you're getting this pledge level. That's where it's going to come in handy. If you're not getting that pledge level and you're getting this one, $90 for this is essentially what you're going to be paying. Now, astute people have said the MSRP for this is 110. The price level is 80 versus the 60 of the previous. So yeah, it's a little bit more. And this is where the argument comes in. You are paying for IP. You are, right? Are you okay with paying for IP? I think the same thing is happening with The Witcher. They said that The Witcher is going to retail for $50. $50 for the similar size of the stuff that's retailing for like $35 right now. And if that's the case, if that is truly the case, the 3 heroes and a board situation, then where's the extra cost difference? Inflation isn't that much. The reason my eggs are $8 for 2 dozen is not because they're that expensive. It's because of a little bit of gouging and inflation cost assumption. It's a little bit of gouging on the company side of things. Now, in this case, it's going to be because of the IP. So if you don't want to pay the premium for eggs when the company gouges, or in this case, when it costs more to bring it to the first place, you know what? That's fine. I would argue that this is not going to be anything that you need all of, right? You don't need foil promo cards. You don't need them. The alt promo pack, you're going to get tons and tons of cards. This thing is going to be chock full. Same gameplay, random art. And again, I'm not negging on that. I think some of the art is cool. Some of the art doesn't appeal to me. But I don't need a full set of alternative art. The reason you would be doing that at this point is because you're collecting it. The other thing I have to say is I was really hoping for them to dig deeper, right? If this had 5 heroes and 3 villains, if this had 6 heroes and 2 or 3 villains, I would be a little bit more enticed at the higher price point. If you gave me in that $80 as sort of a River Folk first time around leader games, value driven, because I remember that one still, I'm that old, and you threw in one of these add-ons, right? Maybe not the Deluxe Token Pack, but the Neoprene Battle Mat, or even better yet, comparatively, even though it costs less, the extra hero decks right here. If those were included as the incentive to do this, if I could find it right here, the $80 one, I would be in on it. And I'd say, okay, I'll make my peace with splitting hairs of whether or not it's going to be cheaper or not. But I don't know, right? $30 for alt art, right? That's a collector thing on the secondary market. That's not going to necessarily hold up unless it's really, really exclusive or it's really in demand. And I don't know, right? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles aren't in that super high of demand, but it's nostalgia for people like me who grew up on it, who now have, well, a whole lot of income to be able to spend on it. So I'm not going to go into the gameplay details here. I'm not going to go into the rules, but how much of this do you need to have from a cooperative, or even just not having the portability? I was hoping that there'd be some cross portability, more so with some of the other stuff to incorporate them as bosses, or sort of the Arcadia Quest Masmora import that they did there to allow for cross contamination that way. But I don't see that either. which again, I was just hoping for something out of the box. And so without that, I mean, wait and see. Then Twisted Cryptid, which $947,000. It's eerily similar to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles there, which is actually relatively impressive again. But they're taking this is a everything merchandise rather than just a board game sort of campaign style of things. And the T-Turtle approach has really worked for them. The kudos that I'm going to give them is they're offering a lot of the exclusives from the previous. The downside is that they're offering like loot boxes, they said afterwards, of some of these rewards. So I'm not a fan of that. There was a fuzzy flying through the air in case you saw me just swat meaninglessly through the air right there. But I mean, it's a very heavy take that, not having any control style of game, because essentially what you're doing, if I can pull up one of the pictures or one of the maps down here, wherever that may be, right? Like, you don't need to see the gameplay content. You can just buy all the stuff sight unseen. You don't even know how it plays. Asymmetric cryptids with one-time ability use, and then you're going to be manipulating basically your wilderness tokens that are down there. And unless you really enjoy the fascination of manipulation and sometimes the lack of control that's going to come with this, because I could see this being very swingy, incredibly motivated by hate playing drafting, because you can pull people in because you may want to score points that way. You can push people out and have them lose their points, and it's not going to be necessarily as friendly in a lot of those cases. It gives you more of a fearfully, and I'll do this just for the sake of doing it, Munchkin vibe. It's not, just kidding. But it gives that vibe of you could really hate play this if you wanted to. And if you want that type of game, I think this is going to, well, be up that nature. But if you don't, or you don't feel the need for a lot of the exclusivity, well, you just probably shouldn't get it at all. Because the only thing we've seen, truth be told, from these T-Turtle games with unstable games is that when this Kickstarter exclusive stuff isn't available during the campaign afterwards, that it gets jacked up on the secondary market for like 10 times the cost. And that's true for the acrylics, the playmats, and everything else, because these bundles will literally sometimes double the price in the secondary market. They're offering some of the previous stuff from the other games, say what you will, but that's the reason you might be getting it. You're getting it because of FOMO. I don't think this is going to be something that is, super deep. It's going to be a little bit of programming in terms of these stacks you're putting down of the cards to then reveal what's going to happen when you have certain requirements met. But it's going to be a lot of randomness, a lot of control, even though it's offering sort of a faint version of control. So take that for what you will. Speakeasy. Again, $800,000. This is crazy, actually. Did you realize we have 3 games that are almost going to break 1 million here back to back to back? This is the next of the heavy Lacerdas from Eagle Griffin. What makes it stand out? What makes it unique? Now, I read through most of the rule book when I covered it for the roundup. I'll be completely transparent here. I don't remember any of it. It was in one ear, out the other by the time that video was ended. So I'm going to turf it to somebody else I'm going to defer it to somebody else that's going to give you a better summary there. But, I agree with no pun included when they were saying, what makes this stand out? What makes this look any different from those aspects? And the truth of it is, I don't have a freaking clue. Is it going to be as different from the other heavy Lacerdas that are in your collection? Are you willing to pay? And I had this conversation in the comment section. Are you willing to pay $130 because it's more complex? I had someone tell me, yes, Chris, it's more complex. I'm willing to pay more for it. You shouldn't be paying that much for a simple game. And my counter argument was, well, I can get that simple game played 5 times in the time it would take you to play this once. And so for me, that's a hell of a lot more worth it than this, right? Because I don't play games in a binary sense. I want to play them as much as possible. So if that's my differentiator, great. Now it's actually 124 if we scroll down here, which is actually a little bit less than the last campaign of 129. That's had some fluctuation, but there's less, incentive to necessarily get it because there's no stretch goals. You just get the upgrade pack. And if you don't need the upgrade pack, this will probably run you about 90 to 95 from what I see typically people selling them on the secondary market for. So again, unless you love it, that's the only reason you should get the deluxe upgrade pack. If you don't know you love it and you haven't played it online in one of the little online simulators already 3 or 4 times, then you're better off waiting and buying it for a slight price increase on the secondary market or at retail, right? This is a big unknown. Big price point, big weight wise. Aspens, $300,000. I'm going to give kudos where kudos is due. For an abstract game, it's killing it. But I would wager you have too many people also getting this because it looks pretty. Because it's flamecraft, if you will, for abstracts. This is on my wish list now. I'm going to be incredibly transparent about that. At the same time, I don't know what to make of these expansions. I don't know what to make of some of the deluxeifications that go along with it. The exclusivity is, spot UV right there. And I worry that all of these expansions are not going to be cross-compatible. So if I don't know which one I want, I'm going to just wait. And I'm not going to be buying the one that plays at 5 and 6, because I would make the argument that if you're really looking at this from an abstract style of things, this is a 2-player game to begin with. The blessing curse of some of this stuff is that it's going to make it less abstracty. So abstracty in the sense that you're going to have pure, perfect information and more control-ish, not complete, obviously, but some of this stuff is going to make it much less so. And so if you want that much less so, you should be getting expansions. But if you don't know that you love abstracts, this also is the one to experiment on. You go buy a GIP series, or you go buy a Hive or a Talk before you get this. Because even just this is going to cost you, upwards of, $70 to get, to try out, to find. Because you're not going to buy the standard edition. You're going to wait for retail for that. So really the only reason you're going to get it is you're going to get the deluxe sleeve, the deluxe tree bags, and the metal coin. And custom triple pieces. That's a weird thing. And I really like the trees. But I would gladly pay someone $10 extra to know that I love this game on the secondary market before buying this, because I worry that, like I've said previously, the reason this is making so much waves, 1, the gameplay looks solid. 2, the aesthetic looks solid. But 3, they're buying it because Earth and nature are all the rage right now, and they're not buying it because they really love abstracts. And it reminds me of a Root scenario where, whoops, that's a war game with a cute aesthetic. Whoops, shouldn't have done that. You don't want to be a whoops. That came out phrasing-wise kind of weird, but we're going to go with it. Heroes of Barcadia. Did I mention we're having a bunch of games that are almost going to break $1 million here? It's a drinking game with rolling dice. It's a drinking game with rolling dice. People love drinking games. I don't drink. This shirt actually is ironic, because if you're not familiar with this shirt, I didn't even realize I was going to wear this one for this. So this is Gamma. This is the Greek G. So this spells keg. The joke was, for those of us in undergrad when we had this made, was we got our fraternity shirts, the fake fraternity shirts, spelling an alcoholic beverage of container, but none of us drank. And so we went full bore into the irony of it. Yeah, we were those people. I was that person. So there you go. But do you want this? It's offering a few more heroes. It's not really offering anything unique. And you just shuffle, play, and drink. But don't worry, you can not drink too. You can drink other things besides alcohol. How many of the 6,000 people that are backing this are, not going to drink alcohol? Anyway, I give them kudos, right? They're putting out something that people want, and there's a clear overlap with it. But if you're not a drinker, I'm going to make the argument that this isn't for you, and it's not going to change your mind. So take that for what it is. Stackle Cats. This is Animal Upon Animal. If you've never played Animal Upon Animal, go buy a copy of that for $10 on the secondary market. Play that and figure out whether or not you like this. I like the nuance that they're doing. I like the fact that you've got the little insert in the middle of the board that keeps things a little bit more steady, but it's got a weird point scoring situation. And if you're not a dexterous person, or you didn't like Animal Upon Animal, because that's actually an incredibly mean game, this isn't going to change your mind. This is an incredibly mean game with a nice aesthetic, again, just like Aspens. And so it's going to be cool. It's going to give you cats. Cats! People love cats. Again, I worry that, too many of those 5,600 people are buying it because of cats, right? Cute cats, cute cats, cute cats. That's what they went with. I love the fact that you can do that. That looks freaking sweet. But is that the exception, or is that the rule? Are you going to be really frustrated by this? I mean, I love Nekojima, which is my other cat-based dexterity game with wires, and they're ropes. But it's also a very frustrating experience as a whole with those games. And I don't think this is going to be any different. Do you really want these slightly different aesthetic with some of these too for a slightly higher price? Not really. This is one that I would be all over getting, at some point on the secondary market as a trade value. But $29 for Animal Upon Animal. It's not bad, but you include the shipping, it's going to be a little expensive. So it's doing fantastic for what it is. And I give them kudos. But again, it's not one that's going to change your mind if you're not a fan of the type and mechanic in the first place. See, we're just going into the 200,000 to 400,000 here right now. Emberleaf. City of Games. I really like the tile placement card dancing. But if you're not sold on it, or you think it's too expensive, right, as we're going through all the deluxified ones that are going on in the first place, it's not going to be for you. It's going to be a little bit just not your ilk, and that's okay. I don't really know what else to say with this one. You don't need the deluxifications, then you just wait. I think the other concern I have with this is that some of the expansions I'm not sure I would not want to have. And I kind of wish, again, there was a bundle, just like with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles here. Instead of bundling me the deluxifications in there, bundle me some of the extra trophies and bonuses and the hero packs instead. Because again, like a choose your own bundle in that sense, I think you would get a lot more appeal. Now it's going to be trickier to put together, and I know why you do it that way as a whole, but I feel like you might win some people that way, but it's probably the standees versus miniature argument, right? Not enough people are going to do that way, and it's going to create a logistical overhead crunch that people aren't going to like. So that'd be the concern, and I understand that too. So if that's the case, then fantastic. The pledges, though, I mean, again, they are what they are. $150 for starters, trophies, everything. I don't think $150 for all that stuff is that expensive. Yeah, right? You got to love it, though. $150 for a deluxe Euro, as good as it is a lot. $100 is a lot, but $100 here, including all of this stuff, I don't think that's any different than, say, like, what was it, Darwin's Journey, or one of those from the years past with all of the extra stuff. It's just because, again, it doesn't hold the heavy vibe that somehow $100 there and $100 here is a completely and utterly different value, even though that was like one mini expansion in the game with some deluxifications, and this is like 3 mini expansions, or 4 even, whatever, plus a deluxification. So again, though, it's going to be card driven. It's going to be probably not as dynamic as you're looking for, but do you want to pay a premium? Which one of these are you willing to pay a premium on, I guess? Nature. Again, very similar, these next two. Nature, and then we're going to talk about railroad tiles here. The trouble is, with both of these, you're not going to have any clue which expansions, which modules in this case, are going to be good for you. And with this one, I have mixed feelings. I don't like it when they're going to hold these back and make them available to backers and then not have them available for like a year almost for regular retail people, which I feel like is just going to lead to scalping on the secondary market, like exclusive stuff in the first place, if you find this game or the base game comes and you're just stuck. So it's not an incomplete experience, but I just wish there was more upfront. But I know that's also the reason you're going to get it. And again, look at this, right? You're getting 5 mini expansions, plus some modules, plus some solo packs, right? And that's $110. I don't hear people crying about that one, but I hear Emberleaf all over the place. So where is your pricing, right? I love that Meeple pack, though, and that's kind of cool. But I don't have a clue which of these modules are going to be right for me. You can go try it out online, but if you're not somebody that does that, are you actually going to be enticed by that? Do you want the one that gives you extra player extension right here? Do you want to pay for a bundled extra player extension and a solo mode? I wish those were separated out from a gameplay content standpoint. But that's the question you have to ask yourself for all those. I mean, that's a long ways out for some of those modules. They're going to keep up with it. But I also can't see these individual modules being like $30 or whatever they have listed. So, you know, it's a roll of the dice. Do you think they're going to be less than that? They're going to be more Marvel Champions-esque? Well, if you do, you wait. If you're on the fence, well, maybe you do it and you try and FOMO because, you know, waiting is going to be super hard because you won't have any other games to play from that standpoint. But then you get over to Railroad Tiles. And similarly, right, this is a huge set of money. Core box, fantastic. Get the world expansion, which is probably more expansion than you're ever going to need because you're getting all these stretch goals. And then you get down to the other expansion stuff, right? The reward tiers, the add-ons. Because the next one, it jumps from $44 US to $93, over double the content value-wise for 3 extra expansions. So $50, 3 expansions. That's fine. That's not terrible, right? That's about $17, 16 2/3 if you're doing the math in your head like I am off the top of your head. But that's not bad for an expansion content. I don't have a clue about any of these expansions. Is this going to be Carcassonne King Domino-esque? Is it going to be too light? With Railroad Inc., routinely people say I use 1 or 2 of these. I don't use all 3 of these. I never play this one, even though I've got it. And they go, I have all of these now. What am I going to do with them? Right? I love the fact that they're saying complexity's on there. I love the fact that they're saying they're only going to be whatever the price is. But I see absolutely no reason to do anything beyond the base pledge here. And then you're probably getting a best deal. Anything higher than that, I think it's a complete and utter crapshoot. Because even then with the shipping here, let's go down there and see this. As I always say, it shouldn't matter. But, it's going to be an extra $20 plus shipping. So $64. Is this $30 game going to give you $34 or so worth of stretch goals right now? Is this that? It looks like it's going to have significant amount of content. So probably. But beyond that, I don't know. And again, I think this is a lifestyle game in the sense that you got to play it enough to love it. It's not even like a Cascadia Rollings. This is going to be a lot more of a buy-in, and a buy-in literally, but as buy-in as you're going to need to get it more played to actually make you feel like it's worth it. Rayman, again, I told you, right? This is really impressive, actually. The fact that all of these are sitting where, between 200 and like $500,000. It just shows you the money's getting thrown around a lot, and it shows you that, there's a lot of people going in still, regardless of the price. This is a racing game. This is a racing spatial game. And I can't tell how many people, again, are doing nostalgia and how many people are doing it for like these little colored set of miniatures, which are skins and vinyl, versus the actual gameplay content. Because I'm not as convinced about the gameplay content, even though I like the mechanic of this overlaying cards and initiative system and sum totaling them up to try and move your guy around. But it's very heavy take that. And it's not going to be as controllable. So I'm not sure, again, if you want to make the argument here, in this game, comparatively, depth of complexity and price point, right? Not that the base here for $47 is bad, because you're going to get the lucky tickets here to get you a little tiny bit. But again, is that really looking like it's worth it? Because a lot of those are deluxeifications and not necessarily at that level. So the next one up for that, the next pledge level, look at that. It goes from like 45, it goes from 48 to 147. Now that's a huge jump up. Again, don't hear anyone shouting about the rooftops from that one. And they're throwing in 5 to 6 players, 10 of those vinyls, deluxe tokens, and the lucky tickets. So do you want gameplay bundled? But again, look at this. This is vinyls. This is all deluxeified, not really card thing that you need. So this is incredibly light for what it is comparatively for, again, $200. So that'd be the concern. And this is more like a video game in the sense that they're selling you skins and telling you need them. Do you need them? No gameplay wise, but color wise. We'll see. Now, again, $673,000. I wasn't kidding about the money getting thrown around here, folks. DC deck building Arkham Asylum. The last couple of these expansions, one, I don't really know if they're a good jumping in point. Two, there's very little information on Board Game Geek or even in general. There's like a preview video or two for each of the last two, and that's about it, apart from like the random, 50 or so people-ish. I'm being facetious, but it sort of reminds me as the legendary side of things, where the mainstream crowd is really veered away, and I don't say that as a bad thing. Like, I love the Batman side of things with this. I love the Arkham Asylum vibe, right? This is the first one that's enticed me in a long time, because you've got Death Metal, you've got Batman Hush, and you've got Dark Knights Rising, all awesome IPs. But if I can't know that this is a great one to get in on from a dynamic, improved mechanical standpoint compared to the original, I don't know if I can do it, right? Because I would argue that, I don't need the acrylic standees. I don't need some of the one shots here. I don't need the Super Friends expansion or the Teen Titans Go, even as cool as that is. Again, I just don't know. There's too much unknown. So if we scroll down to here to Arkham Asylum, 200 standard cards in the base game, which, arguably, I'm always making the comparison when we go down in a second to the stretch goals here. What is the ratio that I'm getting? Because that's really where Cryptozoic has gone heavy, and it's played a little FOMO. But truth be told, unlike the art pack that we're getting with Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, right? You're getting a lot of gameplay content here. if you scroll through all of these, and I counted in the outtake section, there's over 30 different cards. And that doesn't include some of these packages where they're more than one, right? Let's find one here for you for a second without having to do too much. The Shadows here, 18 cards. So there is a significant amount of content, probably about 30% with stretch goals extra. That's not insignificant. Do you need any of this stuff? No. Do you need the sleeve? No. But yeah, you're getting the stretch goals to go along with that. And maybe that's where the 30% becomes a little bit less if they're all divided differently from that aspect of things. But that'd be my question, right? If I'm looking at that pledge and I want to get all 3 of these, which are going to get me, well, maybe potentially most of the exclusives, that's still going to be $75 here just for these 2 things with Dark Knights Rising and the base game, which is not insignificant for $75 plus shipping. One expansion and a base game is a heck of a lot of money if you're talking expensive, when I was just talking comparatively, right, to things like Emberleaf. So I think that it's an exclusivity deal. Is it a good deal? Is it a good jumping in point? To be determined. And you know what? If it's a jumping in point, the truth is you don't need the exclusives. So you're probably better off getting it for literally probably half the price at retail when it comes. Quest Snakes has almost $100,000. I just looked at this as a family friendly, my kids would love this style game. It's going to be too light for you. You're going to be drafting. You're going to be just randomly playing a collection of 2. It's going to be head to head, take that-ish in terms of playing down cards that sum total higher than your opponents, risk mitigating in terms of how many times they're going to take to get back to you, and then rinse and repeat. Pick it up at retail. But it's an indie game, and if you don't like snakes, well, you can pass on this one easily. But if you're looking for something a little bit different, it may appeal, but again, I have trouble. This is my weak point right on crowdfunding, is some of these fillers, the ones that are going to stick around versus the ones I'm going to play like 3 or 4 times and be done with. And again, what do I always say? If you can't tell, you know what to do. Citizens of the Spark. Speaking of that, right? This gives me like Dale of Merchants vibe, only like regular, as opposed to Dale of Merchants being sort of the opposite deck builder, if you will. And I make that comparison because you're having these different creatures go all together, but you're taking the follow action, and the follow action then burns a card from your combo system. So you're having to choose when you're going to build the deck up and when you're going to burn all your cards to get rid of them to create those combo-licious combos that you're comboing in the combo nation of Combonopolis, if you will. And, Thunderworks is sort of, right on the edge where it's always pretty close to what you're going to be getting at retail with shipping, because they're going to give you a little bit extra to go along with it in terms of the exclusive items here. I mean, you're getting 3 different sets and it comes with 30. So you're getting a 10% addition there for free. And it's the get it now versus get it later. They are not like hard to get, but it might cost you slightly more. It might be just slightly less depending on where you get it from and who you ship from. So it's a coin flip. And that's the way it is with Thunderworks. And they're giving you the little bit extra that I was hoping for, like I said, with Unmatched. But that's the question you got to ask yourself right now. Is this one for you? They put out solid stuff. It's probably going to be a little bit lighter than you want in terms of the combo chaining as well. You might want something heavier along your even falls, that aspect of things, or pick up Veil of Eternity and the new expansion before the end of the year. That might be the thing for you. But there's enough info, you can find it. This is tricky, just like I said with the last one. Light driven, clever combos. Is it clever for you? Deliverance! Again, $300,000. So Angels versus Demons, right? Expansion playing off of the previous. And the biggest problem with this, if you're looking at it, right, is price point. Let's be truthful about this, just, as that theme of the video, essentially, because it's not an insignificant amount. If we look down here, right, the actual expansion is $80. Now, the thing that if you're not paying close attention to, though, is it almost literally doubles the content of the base game. So that is going to be the blessing curse that goes along with it, right? You are going to get a absolute freaking metric ton of information as well as just sheer volume of game stuff. But is too much a good thing? That's what you have to ask yourself all the time with this. Can I actually get it played? Is it actually going to be able to be gotten through? This is the opposite problem. I have too many of these scenario-driven, combo-licious as we were just talking about combos. Asymmetric style, choose your own upgrade tech tree, 50-page rulebook games. And I'm speaking with the plural, I or we, whatever I said there, right? Liegism. What I mean is, if you have one of these games, you're probably in the market for several of them. And is this one going to get table time comparatively to the others? Especially now if it's twice the size. Which, again, not the issue, right? Tales from the Red Dragon Inn, Tamashii, all the Nemesis stuff, right? Plenty of plenty. No one's complaining about lack of plenty. Most of the issue is that you have too much stuff that you end up not using. So that's the blessing curse of an expansion this size. An expansion half this size, it's going to be a lot easier to get a lot of that played and feel better about it from that aspect of things. But if you have this big of an expansion, how many plays of this are you going to get to be able to feel like it's justified from that side? That's it though. I mean, it's a solid dungeon crawl-esque scenario driven, but also with a campaign now game. And if you want to do it, it does something very solid. It wouldn't be getting $300,000 if the first time wasn't something people liked. Even with the deluxifications, the standees, all those things that you want to put with it too, this is still a lot of money on crowdfunding. Don't be fooled by all these figures that are higher 6 digits. Anything breaking 6 digits is freaking amazing. And I think sometimes we lose track or sight of how good that actually is and how much it takes to do that. Is it for you though? All-in's going to cost you lifestyle points, and again, like I said with the other, you got a lot of those. Is this the one for you? Valheim, $1.1 million. Again, I don't think I've ever done a video with this many, at least 6-digit projects, at least like even 500,000. This is probably one of the biggest roundup, don't backs, whatever that I've seen. Valheim, from the people who brought you Deep Rock Galactic. So I think the floor of this game, knowing what they did with Deep Rock Galactic, I think you're safe. But I don't know how high the ceiling is with this either. And we're seeing they're putting out slowly more and more content. There is a trailer that you can watch, and now there's a playthrough video and a couple previews, which again I'm very happy by that there's a little bit of stuff. But when I covered this previously, there was also no rule book, so it reminds me more of a cyberpunk situation of what is going to be the upkeep with this. Because this is going to be a big game. You're going to be doing surviving, vanquishing, attacking, upgrading, minutia, crawl-esque upgrade tech tree vibes with cards and dice battling. Don't like dice battling? Probably not. And again, if I look at this, is this compared to MSRP? Is this compared to actual retail pricing? What's that mean? You're going to get a bunch of stuff, right? You're getting a bunch of add-ons that are going to be fantastic, and you can bling it the heck out. But with all of the crawl-esque upgrade, asymmetric character, do-it-yourself, choose your own, Skyrim vibes, whatever it may be, how do you differentiate this, right? Okay, don't worry, you're creating, and then you're going to explore and gather resources. I feel like I've heard that before. Craft, improve your house. Okay, that's slightly different. Fight off bad guys with dice rolling and fight a boss. Okay. So what is this doing different besides that house aspect of things? I don't see it on the page. And we're seeing more and more generic-esque fantasy styles of this. And what I'm not saying is it's going to be bad. But what I'm saying is, if I can't distinguish this from 2 or 3 other mediocre ones, even if this one is by far and away the best, how do I, as a consumer giving you a free loan, know for sure that that's going to be for me? And the problem is there's a relatively lesser amount of information that we'll see with this, as well as the one that we're going to talk about right after this that ran into that problem when I covered it on the should you back style of things in the first place. Because again, all of these games are going to cost you, anywhere between $150 and like $400. So how do you distinguish this? This one appears to have very little to no narrative. Is that what you're looking for? Do you want to deluxify it all out right there? You can. There's stretch goals and add-ons and, some preview content down here that I already scrolled by. But unless you watch one of the videos and it's a preview one, right? So I don't know how well those systems are going to work together. I don't have any opinions telling me, what are the highs and necessarily lows when it's all previews. And I don't have a rule book to look for cruxes that might not be of my ilk, or that it's a 30-page rule book versus a 70-page rule book. If you knew that difference, for example, would that change your mind one way or the other? Again, not because one is worse or better than the other, but because it's going to help you make more information. There's only so many 70-page rulebooks you can have in your collection. 30 pages, though, makes it more accessible. If I can bargain and think about it that way, okay, right? Negotiate with your brain. Then, Story of Many, $590,000. Heavy cooperative, 400,000 word story. 1 to 4 players, though. And again, you're going to have some dice-driven combat. You're going to have all of the pledge levels up at the top here because Game Found, everybody now. I don't even know why I say that. It's everybody. And there is, I think, more information on the page now than there previously was when we scroll down here. The how to play and a little bit of playthrough and some, again, sort of couple previews. And are you comfortable putting hundreds of thousands of words as an unknown narrative? And if you're going to mark it as a narrative, right? I got to segue here a second. How many of these narratives are super good? How many games of the narrative side of things, when they emphasize that this is narrative cooperative campaign game, not narrative cooperative campaign game, right? Putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. That's what I'm going to wonder about, especially if you're going to translate it into a couple languages. Is the writing going to be that good for me? I am starting to segue out of more narrative-based games. I loved the idea of them 2 or 3 years ago. I am less enamored with them because I find myself skimming the narrative and wanting to get to the, good stuff. I want to get to the gameplay. I want to get to the mechanics. I want to know what mechanics make this game unique. And again, just like Valheim, there is nothing on the page that tells you any of those things. You get a list of all the components, which is awesome. You get a list of all of the keywords, awesome. You get to see the generic fantasy stuff, again, awesome. A little brief overview of the expansion with the mini stuff that it's offering alongside of the dungeons and everything else, awesome. There's only so many preview videos I want to watch because I still feel like playthroughs are somewhat helpful, but unless I see a copy of the rulebook being read on the playthrough video, I don't know how much rules you've internalized. I don't know how much rules you're skipping past because you're not talking about this segment of the game. I don't know how much of a copy of the game you're looking at comparatively to what they're doing, especially with the rules aspects. Is this a 30-page rulebook on a prototype scenario that's going to have 70 pages by the time you finish the 400 freaking thousand words? One of those things. It's one of the games of all time right now on GameFound. It's got over $500,000. So I hope, for people's sake, that it turns out to be good. But if it's a question, again, what do you do? Cloudspire, we're just going to cover it here. I'm going to throw it in early, maybe throw it in on the next one that I do at the end of October, whenever that is, right? Harbinger, right? Chip Theory, $650,000, final campaign. Gives me very similar vibes to what they did with the Too Many Bones and that final campaign as well. They're going all out. They're pulling all the stretch goals out. They're pulling all of the extras to go along with it here. You got the expansion. You've got the different factions that are going along with it. The shot of the graft of the keel. And then you're getting new minis to go along with it too. So you got to have all your minis match. A big box like your boy supposed on the news video from last time. And then also to throw in there all the people that are so hook, line, and sinkered into 20 strong. You're getting your 20 strong expansion here as well. Okay, why back now? This is the end, it says. Bundled prices. And you will usually get a decent price on this. You'll save 20 or 30 bucks the more you buy. The issue is it's still Cloudspire. It's still primarily a solo puzzle aspect with a huge overhead, huge learning curve. PvP slog, and I say that lovingly. I say that as a slight tower defense style that I wanted to love. I think it's just too heavy for me. And I'm too scared at this point to find out, the Chris Pratt meme. And I just am probably going to pass on it from that aspect and never be able to play it. And I've kind of made my peace with that as a whole. I don't think, just like with my mistake on the last Too Many Bones campaign, that if you weren't a fan of this previously, this is not a Jump in now and get in because the getting is good. This is a jump in now because you absolutely love this game to death. And it's not going to change its stripes, right? Tiger style. You either already love it and want more, or you hate it with a vengeance. Just kidding. No, you just don't have the appeal, right? It's like Bullet in my house. I've got some people that love Bullet, and I've got some people in my game group that hate it, right? There's no in between. I'm one of those lovers. But that didn't come out right. Strategist Pledge. Oh, wow. I didn't actually look at this before filming. Strategist Pledge is up to $800. Wow, only 11 of them this time. Although, did they have 10 and just maybe an extra person got in? I don't know. People are using bots to get it anyway. But think about that for a second. People yell at me for getting Marvel United and how much I've spent on that. Too much, by the way. Much more than this. But the all-in for this completionist is $665. And again, like I said with Marvel United, I can get that played. Well, let's compare. If Cloudspire takes you 2 hours, I could probably play at least 6 games of Marvel United. And for me, I know I'm completely okay with that if the price was the same for that. So, do you, but I don't think any of these things are going to change your mind. Again, that would be my biggest question when you scroll down to the expansions here. Which one is for you? Just like the Heroes of Might and Magic, right? Are you better off getting these ones? Is there going to be power creep? Are you better off getting these ones because it's a Nemesis lockdown, and Nemesis, you only need the first Aftermath expansion and everything else after that is just, completely just never going to get to that point? Is it going to increase significant in complexity with these ones? You don't know. Do you try and guess? I'm sure there will be plenty of people telling you some of the old stuff to go through. That doesn't help you with the new stuff. That doesn't get you all the minis on top of the chips, on top of the, deluxe playmats. So again, if we're talking expense and deluxe, this one takes the cake comparatively to everything else we've talked on this video. Again, not saying it as a huge negative, but saying that, Emberleaf is 2 deluxe and then scrolling over here and backing this, right? That's my problem with our hobby. I don't care, man. If this is your deluxification, awesome. If Emberleaf's your deluxification, awesome. If Awakened Realms or Cyberpunk is your deluxification with just pure miniatures, awesome. But let's not pretend that one is better or one is lesser than the other. That's the part that pisses me off. Side rant over. Next game. Now, you know what? I said screw it. We're doing all the 6-figure ones today. Dinogenics, new arrivals. I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea, right? People say that this is the Jurassic Park game that you want, not the other one, the one from Pandasaurus with the neon 90s style vibe. I can't speak to it, right? Neither of these are my ilk, but getting over $250,000 as a reprint because you can't get it on the secondary market, it's just not widely available, that would be the reason to get it. However, that is also the reason not to get it, because you're only getting it because you won't be able to get it later. Not because you're actually in love with the game in the first place, right? That's how I feel like, let's just talk about the latest game, Compile, that Shut Up and Sit Down just reviewed prior to me filming this, right? I think that could be a great game. For those that love 2-player asymmetric head-to-head dueling styles, not just because Shut Up and Sit Down recommended it, right? That has to be your type of game. And if it's not, their recommendation might be great, and it might be a great game, but say it with me, is it a great game for you? And now we're getting a second expansion with this one as well. Differences between expansions, storage boxes, that's what you're asking yourself. And I have no idea. I have absolutely no idea. I'm not going to pretend that I have a great reason to get it or not get it, but that's the question, right? Like, is this a thematic incorporation like we were talking about with Aspen earlier, where, you just love the earth and the trees, you love the vibe of the dinosaurs because there aren't many dinosaur games in that sense? Or do you actually like or prefer a slightly heavier worker placement style of things with that aesthetic in the first place? So it's, killing it actually, but is it right for you? Skara, Brae, and the Anarchy. This one's going to be over by the time you guys watch this. And again, $375,000. So freaking much money being spread around in these campaigns, folks. I have to say it again. I'm shocked by how many well over $100,000, $200,000 or $300,000 campaigns there are. And this is a really good one for Garfield games. A combination of two, the spiritual successor to Hadrian's Wall and the next in the line of the worker placements. But as he even says on the page, if you don't want the deluxeifications, as we were talking about the promo stuff earlier from Arkham Asylum, the percentage there was a lot higher. The percentage here is a lot lower, right? You're getting a couple promo cards and a couple tiles if you're getting both of them. And comparatively, it's, at about a 5% as opposed to potentially as high as 30. So, right? How many times do you use promos? That's the main incentive. These games have a high basement. But how different, as the no pun included situation, brought up, are the heavier worker placement Euro style games nowadays? And I'm not the right person to suggest or to think or to be able to clarify otherwise. But these are on the heavier end of the spectrum. I would worry that if it is like some of the other from Garfield games, 90 minutes seems a little bit shorter than I would have expected there as the playtime. So can you differentiate it from the other Garfield games? Or just like with this or Awakened Realms or Simon or whoever it is, Stonemeyer, any of those, are you buying for the company or are you buying because this is the best fit game for you, right? We could similarly shortly afterwards, if I decide to include it, I may or may not, I haven't decided yet, above and below the Haunted, because I know there's a lot of Red Raven fanboys. I don't say that's a bad thing. I say that as, I describe myself as a level 99 fanboy, right? I would love to see a video on the page here that just said comparison to all the other Garfield games. Where does this one rank or fall? Not necessarily in like a purely, this is my favorite, but like how heavy, how many minutia, how many rulebook pages, how many upkeep things I'm having to do, like whatever it may be for you Euro worker placements. I'm making up terms. You can tell how late it is at night when I film this by depending on how good my vocabulary is. So there you go. Get all their other previous stuff too, and they're offering a whole bunch of the extras from the previous campaign. So I like that, but you have to decide whether or who on the indie side of things you're backing, and is it them? Dark Tomb Ice Chasers. Cheaper, more portable dungeon crawl vibe, if you will. And it's cheap and portable, so you should get it, Chris, right? Well, no, right? Like, I'll be honest with you guys. I don't really play games anywhere else apart from local places and my house. And I would not bring this with me anywhere, right? Like my wife and I occasionally will take like a dinner date or something and we go to a park maybe and play a game there, but I'm not sure I really bring any games anywhere. So portability from that side of things, personally speaking, from that portability wise, is not important to me whatsoever. However, table space in general, I do like it from that aspect. So, going splitsies there. Is it going to be deep enough for you? Because a lot of games like this aren't probably going to scratch your itch in terms of what you want from a dungeon crawl perspective with this. And that'd be the only question. If you're looking at this, how does this compare to the other two Dark Tomb games? Again, talking about it from an Arkham Asylum standpoint, is this the jump-in point? Is this better? Is this the nemesis? We've refined it to lockdown and we've mastered it to retaliation, correlation, and sequential optimization. That was actually a good sentence. But that's the question to go along with it. I don't know. It's going to be slightly different in how you're going to be upgrading and going through and racing and dealing with some of the setup and the map tiles and the actual action, including the sidekicks and the mountain pass aspect. But if you can't try this out and know which of these slight different features on the surface value is going to be for you, right? A cheap game still doesn't always get played just because it's cheap. Or you buy 6 of these cheap games and you may have been better off buying a Speakeasy, for example, that you actually know that you'll get played. Because it's not always about getting it played. It's about getting it played and keeping it. Not getting it played and having it because it's cheap or a status symbol, right? So that'd be my question here. I think they're doing something cool. I love the aesthetic of it, but I also don't see myself playing this one for that experience to go halvesies, right? I'm straddling the fence. I'm not getting the depth, but I'm getting the accessibility. I'm not getting the tech tree and the asymmetry, but I'm getting the table space size of things. Where do you fall? And is this tweening too much in that way? March of the Ants, $315,000. This should not change your mind on 4Xs, right? I feel like 4Xs are one of those similar things where you're either a 4X person or you're not. And I know which side of the aisle I'm on from that side of things. But with this one, this is streamlined. It's better. It's the improved version of this game. But it is not going to change your mind on 4Xs in the first place. This is Euro 4X, slight asymmetry, but highly strategic with some tactile nature. Now, they say the little expansion extra here is not going to be offered through traditional retail big box style, but that also probably means that you're going to be able to get them separately later. Do you need an expansion for a game that you don't know that you love, right? Crux of this video as a whole. And deluxeified more than anything else. So those are the incentives, just like a ton of this stuff. I mean, don't get me wrong, screen printed Predators are freaking cool to look at. But you know what else is cool? Sometimes not paying, well, almost $100 for this game shipped, whether or not you know you're going to like it or not in the first place, because you're getting that expansion, you're getting the deluxeified, and the base game, if and when it may show up at retail, because it did previously, but it's been a lot harder to get. I think it's, sort of out of print, maybe even too, the first time, $50 plus shipping, 60, $65. And is this that much price at retail? And I would probably make the argument no, but choose your indie style backer situation more than anything else. But like I said, 4X is 4X is 4X, and it has to be right for you. So almost 5,000 people looking at it, but should you be one of those 5 or should you be not one of those 5? Pantheum. I didn't think this thing was anywhere near $250,000, but I pulled it up anyway, and lo and frickin' behold, right? We're setting records in this video. This is just a cool kind of drafting, move your characters around, do your asymmetric actions, and I think the theme is cool to go along with it. It's a big unknown though for me. Recruiting these gods, getting the deluxeifications, the mandates and monsters expansion here with the new demigods, the monsters that you're going to be having, and then the mandates to give separate asymmetric objectives. I have no idea. I have no idea with this game. This could be a huge dark horse, just like Ultramassive that I talked about a week or two ago, or this could be just something that's a little bit too deluxeified and not going to quite fit. The gameplay is straightforward. Right? You're creating this color pattern matching based on how you want to recruit and score the landscapes and create them in the first place. Because I look at this and I go, the deluxeifications, or the reason I'm going to get it now on crowdfunding with some of this stuff, I don't see that. But it's a game where I would go, this could be really good. Let's put it on my wish list and see where it ends up a year or year and a half from now. And if it's really that good, 1, I bet it'll come a second time around, or 2, I'll pick it up on the secondary market. So again, the similarity between the lot of these at the end is which of these indie, slightly deluxeified, price point, always a question, are going to be backed by you or not. Supporting the publisher versus supporting your free loan and holding off from that aspect. Ludos, $127,000. My biggest problem is it's a multi-game collection system, right? You get one of them, you get the most appealing of them. You get abstracts, right? They're all freaking abstracts. So how do you like abstracts? Just like Aspens, it's not going to change your mind. You got a little bit of checkers and deployment going on with these first couple, as well as a little Mancala along with Oware. But as remakes of old games, I'm not sure how much they stand up to the test of time. And I have a very, very small sample size from their very first campaign, so I can't really speak to that. But that would be my question. Is they're redone and remastered and made prettier? But if these games are, as old as I think they are, then does the abstract style, is it going to be as appealing if you're used to playing more of the modern stuff with more of a balance, or with just some smooth corners sort of taken care of as opposed to a rough edge or two? And I have no idea. Camping season. This is a simultaneous, like multi-phase, 6-phase or so system that you've got going on here as you're drafting, building, allocating, and housing campers, trying to make your campground the best. It is a game that I could see simultaneously having a lot of moving parts, not ultimately knowing if it's going to be heavy, if it's going to be a little light, how dynamic are these aspects going to be. You're rolling dice to allocate certain things along the way that might be detriments or positives. And can you do that simultaneous 6 or so phase action play in under an hour? Campground Tycoon. I was just thinking of that right when I scrolled across that graphic. So I thought of that without actually seeing it. Bear Mountain Country, the previous one, is still in the process of delivered. So they're working along those lines too. And stretch goals are going to be the other sort of pre-stretch reason deluxification wise, if that's what your incentive is, as a similar Aspens style. Not a whole lot of gameplay content, but a whole lot of extras that you can make a little bit bigger, badder, and awesome. I didn't realize there were already like 3 expansions to go along with it, which again, when I see that and they're being like described as mini ones, one, I'm happy that they're not making me buy a 5 or 6. 2, I worry that some of the mini expansions you're going to want to play never without. And you're also going to say, why was this taken out in the first place? As opposed to, okay, I need this one as well. So that's the issue that I have when I see a lot of that stuff to show up there in the first place. Other than that, the simultaneous multi-phase system is relatively straightforward on your own individual player board. It kind of gives me more of like Foundations of Metropolis in the sense that you're going to have your own individual player board and be dealing with that on a regular basis rather than also just the shared, but that's got going on that vibe too, similarly. So do you want to manage all of these things? And is this going to be too AP and make that playtime a little bit higher as a whole? And if you don't need deluxifications, you wait and see, because if their first one hits retail, this one will hit retail, and you can late pledge it and kind of see how you feel about it from that aspect. Is it going to be more of a Flamecraft? Is it going to be more of a Crit and Kitchen? Which one? How deep? How heavy? Check it out. There you go. I'm tapped out. I'm done. I can't talk about any more games, so this video is going to be even longer than it should be. And I think I hit most of the 6-digit ones, but there were a couple like even 70 granders that I didn't even get to this week because there's just so much, a plethora of goodness and money being thrown around. So there's never a shortage of stuff you can throw your wallet at in terms of screen buying. But as well as I'm experiencing with Andromeda's Edge, difference between dopamine on this side of things, click, 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 versus showing up at the door in front of you as well. Are you still going to have that dopamine rush there? But like I said in the video, of the don't back videos, this is probably by far and away the most I've ever seen of 6 figures, maybe even at any point all across the board when I sum total it up. Whether it's a should you back or a, giving you a recap summary like I used to do of just the ones that were funding of, spread out. But this one is relatively surprising. So when I told you, when I hyped things up, because I'm just a hype show machine, for October really being a good month, right? The end of September, October, hitting hard, and we still have a couple weeks to go at the end of this month with Dice Throne and Root among many others launching. And I didn't even cover Harakiri. I didn't cover Above and Below Haunted from Red Raven. So there's going to be plenty of covering, as well as a little bit more in-depth look at a few of these when they break 1 million. I'll have some individual should you backs or not as well. There you go. Stay classy. Peace out. Let me know what you're not backing. Have a great day. Subscribe. Hit the thumb button, actually. If you made it this far, you really owe it to me to hit the thumb button. Help this go viral. I don't have any other viral videos. Like, I just never have a video that hits all of a sudden, like, boom, right? And I'm just sort of mediocre. I see small channels with all of a sudden like a 50,000 view. I see channels that are bigger than me all of a sudden have one spike out of, and I'm just like, man, grass is greener. I'd love that once in a while. I had that one for all you longtime viewers, I'll throw this in the end, where it was like an Adam Cole, baby, where I did that in one of my videos, and I think I put that on like this thing on the thumbnail, and then I had all of these Indian folks as well as like Indian bots just all of a sudden jack up my subscriber numbers. I went from like, I don't know, like 3,000 to like 10,000 and then back down slowly, and the video was only being watched for like 3 seconds. That's how I knew it was bots, but it had like 27,000 views by the end of it after like a week or so. It's so weird. I have no clue. I'm a horrible algorithm, right? I'm just a clickbait machine. That's all I am. I'm done. Peace out.